Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome aboard. It is Monday and time to get it started again here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks a lot for being with us. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles, and the Autograph app. Autograph is where real fans get unreal rewards, the first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app today in either Apple App Store or Google Play, where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards. Make sure you use the link that we can throw up there for you. It has a special code for you to use. Boom. There it is. link.ag.fan/ISB media. Again, that's link.ag.fan/ISB media to make sure you get all the goodies that go with it. How's everybody doing? Appreciate having you along for the ride. The Andy Moore Honda hotline filling up. Russell's on 5, John from Southport, Kevin down in Jeffersonville, Tony, make sure I don't miss anybody, Larry, Las Vegas Larry, Fred, of course, the whiteboard markers that I used, courtesy of Fred and Crayola back there, as you see. My special little Crayola whiteboard markers. Russell, how's see? Robert, Gritty. Pacers stunk it up yesterday. Yeah, that's not a great way to get things going. Donald down in Atlanta. Appreciate everybody. Bob in Georgetown. Shenanigans in a frosty southern Wabash County. Yeah, it's frosty everywhere. And Buffalo Bill down in southern Indiana as well. How's everybody doing? How was your weekend? Little 5 weekend come and gone. Indiana had multiple visitors in for basketball over the course of a 5-day period of that time. They do get the commitment that was greatly expected in Kanan Carlisle. We'll talk about that, of course. You've got a new name in the fold. Zach Anderson from Florida Gulf Coast, a wing, 6'7" wing, who's got some pretty good numbers, and familiar face as he played at Assembly Hall last year in a game that was a little closer than Indiana fans would have liked to have seen. So plenty to get caught up on. Also on board today, Todd Leary joins us, Dustin Dopirak, and Travis Miller. From Boiler Upload. And speaking of Boiler Upload, Matt Painter back at it. He's got an in-home visit with Trent Sicily today. So he continues to really put the full court press. He wants to get Sicily as much, I think, as to beat Indiana again. In addition, he's a great talent, obviously, playing for Indiana Elite. And as a matter of fact, they will be playing in Indianapolis this weekend. I'll be there. I know that Tyler Smith will be there from thehoosier.com. So that'll be covered in abundance. Not just Trent Sicily, but you got Desmond Briscoe, Braylon Mullins, and Malachi Moreno playing this weekend. So we'll be there to cover all of that and keep up on that. And make sure you do at thehoosier.com as well. How's everything else going? Hope you had a good weekend. Rather relaxing. Chilly. Relaxing because I didn't do anything. I had nothing to do with Little 500. I stayed away from it. It was packed downtown area in Bloomington, and I think that it probably went pretty well because even though the weather was a little chilly, it was great for the cyclists, the riders. Had to be in. I didn't see the race, but I'm sure it was a good one. Michael on from the land of legend. Appreciate you. Pecan pie. Got a slice coming in the house. John W. as well. Not me. I got the anonymous names. Saying that IU lost their blue blood status. Oh, God, here we go again. Let me stop you right there. You don't lose blue blood status. There is no status. It's not a status. It's something that you either are or you are not. And if you can't comprehend that, then that's just because you're trying to fit things into a box that's your box, that you have decided what it is. And that's fine. But that's your box. That's not reality. You don't lose that. That's just something that you don't. I've used this example before. It's like the royal family in Great Britain. They don't lose their status. It is what it is. They may not be worth a darn, but if they're if they're royalty, they're royalty. And so that's why I didn't even stop reading what this has said. It's about an achievement over time, period, that has happened from a long time. And unless you stop existing, that status does not stop existing. Now, have they pissed on that status? Yeah, they have. Yeah, that's just not that's just a dumb argument to try to even make. But we appreciate you. No, nonetheless. Rolling down. So the big discussion today is the blue blood. Yeah, Chris. The Pacers look like a deer in the head. That's perfect. That is a perfect way to put it. Milwaukee is a team that I think that they went 4-1 against during the regular season, and it looked like they had never seen them before, and they were ran over like a Mack truck. Agree with you, man. Absolutely. But hopefully they'll pick it back up. That usually is. Oh man, you guys are having a funny conversation there in the you got Tana says that Indiana is not a blue blood, never was. Really? That may be the craziest statement I think I've ever seen. So there's that. Jason says Woody needs to get in home with Sisley and Mullins. Two big gets to go along with the good offseason recruiting. Well, I'm not going to deny that. I mentioned somewhere along the way that I hope that Indiana does not start relying on the checkbook rather than the good old-fashioned recruiting method. You have to have a great mix of landing guys in the portal, the right guys, but you also have to have a mix of it doesn't have to be homegrown, but with all the talent that does come from Indiana, you would be remiss to not get it. Guys like Trent Sisley, like Braylon Mullins. So we'll see how that goes. We will certainly see how that goes. Brian asking, does Indiana have a shooter yet? No. But that does that brings up Zach Anderson from Florida Gulf Coast. And before you laugh just because of where he comes from, don't. How many guys did you see last year that that came from schools that you're like, wow, all the time? And it's either guys that were overlooked, guys that were just under recruited, guys that blossomed with a year in college. So there's multiple reasons why guys get better. Hell, his numbers are pretty good. So, especially from shooting outside. There's a piece up right now on that from our own Tyler Smith, rather. You can go to the Hoosier.com, and as that visit kind of came out of nowhere, so to speak, I think that happened yesterday. In all, trying to get that pulled up right now to pull his stats up, but he played the last 4 years at Florida Gulf Coast, so that means he's got 1 season of eligibility left. He shot 39% from behind the arc in his career. That's right, career 39% three-point shooter. He's a 6'7" wing, and last season he was 46% from behind the arc. That's not bad. Now, he's not playing in, the Big Ten or the SEC, but you saw him play against the Big Ten at Indiana, playing against Indiana. I was actually at a game that they beat Florida Atlantic, as a matter of fact. He scored 19 points on 5 of 7 shooting behind the arc against Indiana. So there's that, if you have doubts about what he can do. More about that and much more. As I said, Todd Leary on the program today. Dustin Dopirak, of course, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. We've got more coming up, and we're back with it. Brought to you by the Autograph app. It's where real fans get unreal rewards. Make sure you go to either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Download the Autograph app. Where hinged fandom meets unreal rewards. Make sure you use the sign-in link .ag.fan/ISB media. Back with more, including the Todd Father, right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. Did that transition make sense on screen, Tyler? Cool.
Too bad I can't hear him or can't hear each other. I would have talked to him.
I know.
But can he join in another window?
He might, but then there'd probably be some echoes, and that would be really uncomfortable to deal with and try to figure out.
Da 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 da. Man, I'm so bad. Again.
Yeah, so what I've come to learn with playing music off of YouTube is sometimes there may be an ad when you initially click on a link to a song, but once it plays the ad, you're usually good to just let it sit there once you find the place in the song that you want to use. I've never had it turn on me in the middle of the song. So, but I've never had any issues with that. And I'll show you what different channels to use on a later time, but just any of the copyright free stuff is what I use. Just because we don't get flagged on YouTube for it.
Hey, did you contact Todd?
What about Todd?
Did you make contact with him?
I haven't spoken with him, but he should have the link.
I just want to make sure he doesn't forget.
Let me bring Tyler back in. Do I got your back, Tyler, on the other end? Okay.
Because if Todd doesn't join us, we could use Tyler.
Well, I mean, I would say that's a good idea, but he's got to watch me do this right now.
Well, but he could skip that for one segment.
And then Tyler, usually you see this timer right here is about 30 seconds on here. You've heard me say, 30 seconds and stuff before. Once I see that, like I'm about ready to do, I'm going to hit these headphones button so that the commercials are still playing through there. But this allows Jim to hear them again. And that's what I'm going to do right now.
Everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Monday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle with you as always, waiting to see if Todd's going to join us today. Brought to you by our good friends at Chop Shop, home of the Indiana men's and women's basketball coaches shows and the football coaches show, of course. Chop Shop Market and Table, home of those, located just north of Bloomington High School South on South Walnut. Your local meat shop, steakhouse, and caterer, no matter where you live. Chop Shop Market and Table offers a great sit-down dining experience for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, where you can even pick out your own steak from the on-site butcher or choose from their incredible daily dinner specials. Chop Shop's Market and Butcher Shop offers quality meats like locally sourced Wagyu steaks, seafood, and more. And do not miss out on Chop Shop's daily in-house made bakery items, cakes, pies, and pastries. All mouth-watering at the Chop Shop. Hope your weekend went well. It was a rather chilly weekend. Nice, but chilly. I did watch the NASCAR Talladega race yesterday. Guess who won that? Michael Jordan's team. His first NASCAR Cup Series win in person. Tyler Reddick wins the race, driving a Jordan brand number 45 car in the 23 XI Racing, which is pretty cool. He scooped up Jordan's scooped up Reddick's 4-year-old son, celebrating on pit road. That was awesome. But it's amazing to see the guys that have crossed over to NASCAR and are so successful. You've got Jordan, but before that, you've got Joe Gibbs, was a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach of the Redskins, Commanders now. And then, of course, half the pit crews are former athletes. I saw him announcing one yesterday. There was one guy, former wide receiver from Baylor. It's just all kinds of craziness. But got a cool crossover there with that. Indiana over the weekend gets the commitment of Kalen Carlisle. What does that do for Indiana? Well, number one, it brings in more guards and a good guard play, something that they have desperately needed. They still have 3 spots to fill, but Kalen Carlisle was like the worst kept secret in. It was the biggest expected get. He was expected to commit to Indiana before he even got there, but they did land the transfer guard from Stanford. Announced his commitment on his social media page. He's got 3 years of eligibility. That's another good thing. The 2 guards that IU has landed, they all have multiple years remaining of eligibility. Now, you're going to have to re-recruit these guys, unfortunately, but it's probably easier to keep them once you get them, as long as things are going well. Duke, however, that's another case. We'll have to talk about that. 7 guys in the portal, by the way. But after sitting for the first 8 games of the Cardinal season with non-injury related reasons, Carlisle was one of the top freshmen in the Pac-12 final season, averaging 11.5 points per game, almost 3 assists, almost 3 rebounds. His shooting percentages are where some eyebrows are raised, like mine, only shooting 32% behind the arc on 4.3 attempts per game. But his, of course, you'd like to have as high a shooting as possible, but that's not his main job as a point guard. That's something that can improve. Now, if you're judging on Indiana's previous shooting, it hasn't improved, so that will raise a question. But now to go along with, that's the second guard Indiana has landed. Well, he's not a shooting guard, point guard. I'm thinking of, I'm getting confused. There's too many names when you have 7 spots to fill, which is down to 3 now. Indiana has filled 4 of their 7 spots. Carlisle, it's also amazing how many guys are bolting from the Pac-12. But it makes sense since that is no more. That way he would have gone to where, the ACC? Where did Stanford end up? It's hard to even keep them all straight anymore.
Stanford and Cal were 2 of the teams that are going to the ACC.
Right. Okay. Along with SMU, I believe.
Yes, SMU from the American.
Yeah. I was thinking of Miles Rice, the point guard that Indiana. So you would wonder about the numbers, but he's young, and you hope that just gets better and better, and that's something that's being worked on. It's not that they're horrible. They're not. But then you look at a guy like that they're looking at now with the Zach Anderson from Florida Gulf Coast. He has extraordinarily high numbers, but he's a different position player, a 6'7" wing. But that would be nice to go along with Mackenzie Mbako and the wing that Indiana signed out of the 2024 class, Mr. Bryson Tucker. Boy, you talk about needing a scorecard to keep up with these days. Russell saying that Rice and Carlisle are good friends even since they played against each other. So that's also something that will benefit them, the familiarity, because you're bringing in multiple new faces. When you have some familiarity, that helps immensely. They are both very good free throw shooters. That is true, and that could just spawn better everything. Loading says they've got a hell of a front court to go, and they do. And it makes a huge difference because it's not just one spot. Indiana in the front court is going to be in pretty damn good shape. And the backcourt. Their entire team has taken a major jump up. There's no question about that. I mean, you have to wonder. I think that this has got to be the best lineup Indiana will have had under Mike Woodson. And that includes, I know, having Trace Jackson Davis, who's in the NBA, and having Jalen Hood-Schifino. But there's a big difference between having 2 guys and having 5. Even though, let's say, none of the 5 were as good as any of those 2, doesn't matter. Most times, the sum of the parts are greater than the individuals. And I think that that's what you would end up getting with this type of lineup. And if Indiana can continue to add to that with someone like Zach Anderson that has those kind of numbers, it should look pretty good for Indiana fans for next year. James asking, is Ballo foul prone? That's not something that I've heard. We'll find out, but that's not something that has stood out. He can't shoot free throws worth a darn. That's Hackaballo would be a thing. Yeah, but he still scores. He's a double-double machine. And if you have the right kind of support staff around him, that makes that less of a thing because that's going to loosen everything up. When you have 4 other true weapons, whether that's Carlisle or one of the other guys shooting, or Rice getting to the rim, or Mbako, or potentially Anderson shooting from the outside. When you have that kind of spacing, which you have to have, Indiana needs spacing. There's no doubt, but it would make a huge difference. We'll see. They're all good questions. Loading says he's really good at not fouling. So there's that. Philip says, with the current roster, what's considered a successful season? Regardless of what they end up with, period, Indiana needs to be in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're just back to just making the tournament. That cannot be your bar. It simply cannot be your bar, without question. That should be a given every year, although maybe in this day and age, nothing can be considered a given, but there is that. James says, watch Ballo work on free throws all summer and shoot 80%. Well, always possible. I'm not sure about that with that form, but that's something you have to be driven at. I mean, you have to have so much drive to improve greatly at something like that, because it comes down to, I'm sure there's a lot of mental to his is really, really poor shooting. But it's not like it's something that can't be done. Zach Edey is a perfect example of a guy who does not have a jump shot per se, but is a good free throw shooter, 70% free throw shooter. That's all you can ask from a big guy. I mean, if they're doing that, James said he was joking about that. Yeah, like I said, that's not that's going to happen. But Justin asked, do you think the staff got who they wanted at the guard spots, or did they settle? Would they have rather had someone else? Well, that's a question that is never going to be acknowledged. But they did. It's not that it's bad. And if you look at as far as what it's going to, Indiana's class will end up, not class, but this group will end up being rated, it's going to be pretty good. But I still think that you didn't land a shooter in that group, a pure shooter. And you need a guy at that 2 spot that can just knock him down. And maybe that happens with Carlisle. Maybe he improves. I mean, if he improves 5%, that's very possible. Very possible. But there's also a lot of things that go into who you get. There's a lot of guys that wanted guaranteed starting spots or a guaranteed X number of playing time, which I've said before, I think that is absolutely asinine. I don't want a guy who wants to be guaranteed anything, because that tells me he's not going to work for it. He doesn't want to work for it. He wants you to tell you you're going to hand it to him. I don't want guaranteed minutes. You have to earn them. So if you're playing like crap, you still want to be guaranteed X number of minutes over somebody that's on the bench that can come. That's bull crap. Anybody that does that should actually be deemed ineligible. Boom. Sorry, you're ineligible. You can't play. You got to play at a lower level. Demand. That aggravates me as a person, as a competitor, as demand. Unless you're Michael Jordan, and even I don't think that he demands anything. He earned it. Now you want to look at LeBron James. He doesn't want his son to earn anything. He wants it to be given to him, which I think that is the biggest crock of crap. Wherever he goes, he's going to be someplace where he's the team leader and this, that, whatever he said. What a joke that is. So what you're saying is that doesn't naturally happen because he won't earn it. That's just give everybody everything. I agree, James. He would not have demanded anything. He would have been insulted, I think. Sean agrees on fight. If you're not fighting for a starting position, you're not going to fight. You're going to end up quitting. I don't mean literally quitting and walking away, but I mean quitting on the team, quitting in a game. You have to have that fight in you. When you hear guys call guys dogs, that's what they mean. They're dogs. They're out there fighting for everything, fighting, scrapping. And if you don't have a group of scrappers, you're going to get out scrapped. Because I promise you, there are guys that are. UConn is not a team that those guys weren't handed anything. They fought for it. We got lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak joining us. Todd couldn't be with us today. He texted me. But got Dustin Dopirak coming up after this. Plenty more. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Could be the difference in getting the home you want or not. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home.
All right, here's Dustin.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Jim. How are you, sir?
Just peachy.
Wonderful.
Yeah, John, switch Todd to a different day. He couldn't make it today.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll figure something else out for him.
Said he totally forgot, which I knew. How are you doing, man? Where are you? Up in Milwaukee?
Yep. Yeah, I'll be here till Wednesday morning. So yeah, no, you saw last night. It was rough. So you just disappeared, man. This is wild.
What is it?
What's that?
Did you say he disappeared?
Like the picture froze up in just such a way that like it looked like Jim didn't even walk away. Like he was just gone. Like it went from he was in the chair and from what I was looking at until he was just gone.
Oh man.
Well, let me turn another light on real quick.
That is funny.
Will we be graced by Maxine's presence today?
He's on the roll, bro.
She is not.
Oh,
in
that's
Milwaukee.
right. That's right. You're in Milwaukee.
She did not get credentialed.
That's
No,
a
she
shame.
did not get credentialed, and she would not be okay in this hotel room. No.
She did not get credentialed for the NBA playoffs.
No. She is having her own hotel stay. She is at the Pets Hotel at the Castleton PetSmart. So, hopefully she's having a luxurious couple of days. MJ had to she's got something in Kansas City. So.
All right, guys. Got about 30 seconds.
Prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Whether you need 24 t-shirts for your upcoming family reunion or 200 for this season's recreational softball league, Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts work with you to design a professional-looking sales-generating web store for your customer-designed apparel. From large corporations and high school sports teams to national accounts and pro-led athletic camps, Freethink Apparel delivers. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Please join in Dustin Dopirak with the Indy Star as he is traveling on the road covering the Pacers and their quest for a playoff series win over the Milwaukee Bucks. That did not go well last night, even though that the Pacers went 4-1 against the Bucks during the regular season. That was not the case last night. Damian Lillard, 35-point first half, and kind of put the Pacers on their heels to start things off, Dustin.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Pacers just look like, obviously they spent all year talking about, okay, we got to prepare for this. This is going to be different. This team hasn't been there in 4 years. There haven't been a whole bunch of guys who have been there. And they just came out and looked like, oh my God, it's the playoffs. What is this? And the atmosphere, Fiserv for him was jumping. Damian Lillard, obviously, even without Giannis, that they didn't have Giannis available with the calf strain. And it just, but like Lillard going off, it just all seemed to like just knock them just clear back, like, whoa. And so when they missed their first 14 3-pointers, they came out with some defensive energy, but they just didn't seem to have, they just seemed to be a mess on offense. It just seemed to be just a little bit, you got the sense that they were just nervous, jittery, like all of the above. And I thought Lillard took advantage of their energy, and particularly the energy of Andrew Nembhard, who was playing his first playoffs. Nembhard was really up in him, and Lillard was like, okay, go ahead and try that. I'll get you to, I'll get you into stupid fouls because I'm a vet. I know how to take, I know how to take advantage of somebody playing me like you. So I think, it just was very clear that Milwaukee was the veteran team, was a team that had been there before. Most of their guys, obviously, they're a couple years removed from a championship. And Lillard has obviously gone pretty far in the playoffs himself, had some big time moments there. So you could just sense that like Milwaukee had a slow heartbeat and the Pacers did not at all. And so I think, obviously the big piece there is like, well, maybe they got out of their system. Second half was better. I think, you could obviously say that's probably because the Bucks probably took the foot off the pedal. But they could at least look at the second half and say, okay, we're here now. We understand it now. But the first half of yesterday, they clearly did not understand it. It just really, everything about playoff basketball hit them square in the face.
And that's a little surprising because we know that they're young, but they all have enough experience. But man, the Pacers were outshot behind the arc almost by Lillard by himself as he knocked down 6 3-pointers to Indiana's 8 in total for the game.
They were 8 of 39. And that's the issue. Obviously, it's one thing. We talk a lot about IU not taking a lot of them. The Pacers take a lot of them, and the Bucks were basically daring them to take 3-point shots. They really just were loading up against drives where you were seeing, you saw some driving angles where there's just a lot of bodies in there, and there's a guy wide open on the left wing. It's like, okay, we'll kick it over to him. It's an open shot. Like on many occasions, they made the smart move to put it in the hands of somebody that was wide open on the perimeter, and those shots didn't go down. And so it just seemed like everybody was a little bit too nervous to make a 3-point shot. And they ended up taking a bunch of them, and very few of them go in. They missed their first 14. They were 0 of 14 until about the 2:55 mark in the second half. And right at that moment, like right before they hit their first 3, Damian Lillard scored his 29th. It was 29-29 Damian Lillard versus the Pacers. He had as many as the Pacers did before the Pacers finally hit a 3, before Miles Turner got one. So that's the way it was. And I think that was such an obvious sign of their level of nervousness. They just could not hit a jump shot. And it just seemed like precision. It literally seemed like everybody just had just like their palms were sweating and they could not hold a basketball normally. That's sort of what they look like throughout the course of the first half. And it just seemed like their level of nerves, their level of like, oh my God, we're finally here and it's a playoff series and this place is loud and they have Damian Lillard and oh my God, what do we do? And that's sort of how they looked throughout the first 24 minutes of that game.
Yeah, that was in essence the difference in the game for the most part. The Pacers only but 2 guys in double figures, which
3.
is kind of 3 rather. I missed TJ McConnell getting up to 10, but there's usually 4, 5, 6 guys in double figures, and by looking at that, you can see where they were able to limit the Pacers in certain areas.
Yeah, when they're at their absolute best, they've had games where they put 9, 8 or 9 guys in double figures. That's when it's really, really clicking, when the transition game is there, and when they're moving the basketball and guys are hitting shots. They're capable of getting all those guys in double figures. I think they've got 9 guys that averaged at or close to double figures for the year. And so that's how they're supposed to operate. That's how they're supposed to function. Obviously they have fewer guys available that can do that. Obviously Benedict Mathurin being out and everything like that. But again, you expect the playoffs to be different, but you don't expect this, just to not get that many guys going at all. Pascal Siakam was his experience was very clear. He was the one guy who seemed to have a slow heartbeat out there because he's won a championship. This is not an atmosphere that he doesn't know what it's like. He came in with just himself, and they were really able to ride him and rely on him. And he had 36, and just everybody else was a bit of a mess. And Miles Turner had 17, but he was 5 of 17. TJ McConnell played reasonably well, but he was 5 of 13. And on the flip side of that, you had other guys. Tyrese Halliburton in particular doesn't take a lot of shots. He was 4 of 7 from the floor, and you kind of can't have that. I mean, you need him to be a little bit more aggressive, hunt his own shot a little bit. And he really didn't. I mean, I think a lot of cases he made the smart play, but it's a smart play if the shot goes in. And if the shot, it's a smart play if the shot goes in a reasonable amount. I mean, he was hitting the open guy, drawing some bodies, passing out, and when it, to a person who didn't make a wide open shot. And at a certain point, when they're not making wide open shots, it's like, well, that's not the smart play anymore. At some point you have to drive, you have to attack, you have to pull up, you have to hit floater, you have to go to the rim, something. You have to find a way to get your own shot as an all-star, as a guy that's up for all NBA consideration, as a guy that's, if he does make all NBA, is going to have a $260 million contract. You have to be the guy at some point. And so that was, I think, a notion of, all right, this is your first playoff game, and you have to know that it is on you to score the basketball a little bit. So there was just a lot out of sync across the board, for these guys.
And the fact that two-time NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo was sidelined with a calf strain and not even a part of that, that's got to strike a little fear into the heart of Pacers fans.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you look at it and say, okay, well, I mean, I think you still look at the math and say you needed to get one up here. You needed to get one in Milwaukee. And so you have another one on the board. And so if they can go win game 2, home court advantage is still on their side. And so you also don't know, is Dame going to be able to do this all series? Because if Dame's like this, and Giannis comes back, then it's over. Then it's a wrap. But you don't know that Lillard is going to be like this the whole series. And yeah, to James's point, it was a wake up call one game. I mean, I think you look at it and say, well, they just had to be introduced to this, and that's the way Miles Turner pitched it. It was, now we've been slapped in the face. Now we know what it's all about. Now we understand it, and we've got that kind of freak out moment out of our system. We can move on and just play basketball now. And so that's what has to make them feel better. Like, all right, beat them 4 out of 5. Giannis played in all those games. Giannis played in all those games, and he averaged 42 and had a game. I mean, they beat him in a game where he scored 54. So it's possible, and Nembhard had good defensive games against Lillard before. I mean, Nesmith did. I mean, like they did a good job of keeping Lillard from going off before when Giannis was on the floor. So, it's possible that they can slow him down. It's possible that they can slow Giannis down. It's possible they can not slow Giannis down and still win the game. So, they see that there's still possibilities. They're not freaked out. But yeah, if Lillard is going to go off like this, if you're going to get this version of Dame and then you get Giannis, then that's a problem.
Brian says Carlisle's been trying to tell him. He called him out versus the Atlanta, and they didn't listen.
I mean, he calls them out all the time, but it's also
supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you don't know. I mean, he said after the game that the first half was embarrassing. I mean, like I got a whole bunch of people in my timeline saying, "Well, like it's because of Rick's rotations," and there's something to be said for that. He probably did rely. He did rely on the bench too much at the end of the day. He gave those guys a few too many minutes, and he did operate it very much like a regular season game. There was, I think, some slight adjustments in terms of, those guys played a few, less minutes, but they're, going in similar shifts, basically. So Rick can own some of this too, obviously, and you had to think, all right, well, you got to find a way to shake them out of it. When you look out in the series, see these guys are deers in headlights. You got to find a way to do something, and it didn't so much work. So, but yeah, I mean, like he saw a lot of this coming. I think another thing that he mentioned was, hey, it basically in pregame was, if a team has 2 superstars and you lose one of them, you just get a bigger dose of the other superstar, and it's not really that much of a bargain. And so, it was really seemed prophetic when Lillard was going off for 35 in the first half. And so it was like, oh yeah, that's what he means.
Yeah, and so but the good thing is it's one game, it's on the road. The expectations are you don't have to win. You're not expected to win many road games in the playoffs. So if you, like you said, if you can get one out of there, boom, you're money ahead. Actually, you're playing with house money at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you look at it as you've got to find a way to pull off a road win if you're, the lower seeded team, but you can't expect to win all of them, and so it's hard to imagine a team, going in to a place like Milwaukee and winning both on the road to start the series. When you're dealing with a team, it's only a couple of years removed from a championship, and you're still dealing with a lot of veteran guys that have been there before that have rings from this place. Not everybody. There's a lot of guys that weren't there for that last title run in 2021, but several of the guys were. And again, a guy like Lillard's won big games before, hit series winning buzzer beaters. That's for all. Like, obviously he hasn't gone that deep in the playoffs, but when you've come through in those kind of moments, and you have no reason to fear. And so I think it was one. I think he's got international gold medals. I think he's been on an Olympic team. I think he was on the 2020 Olympic team. So it's just that guy's not going to be afraid of anything, and so you have to presume that you are going to come up here and win both. So you're looking to win one, and you still have an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, it's just how you lost. I think it's more about how they lost the game, and having a stinker of a game in the playoffs is not always that unusual.
Sure.
Usually you don't want it to be game one because you want to think that they're coming in ready to play. And when they don't, you look like, oh, well, they weren't ready to play or whatever the case. So,
yeah, no, I mean, obviously the narrative, like the Twitter narrative for the first half yesterday is they are buried, they are trash, they are this, they are that. And you're like, oh, okay. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they are, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've got no chance to come in and change the narrative going forward. But, they can't duplicate what they did in the first half yesterday because, then it is a wrap. But, you can change that narrative. You can be a different team, like the way basketball works, the NBA in particular. I mean, you can come off and be a totally different group in game two than you were in game one. So, so I think they get that. I think they understand that. It's like, obviously, can they change it? Can they make it work? Tough deal because they are going against a tough veteran group. A bunch of guys that have been there before. That are not going to wilt. And someone else pointed this out to me today. I mean, the Pacers were trying to pick to win this series, and so Milwaukee is motivated. That is one thing that you definitely noted from this. They, you imagine they could look at it. Come in looking at the series like, oh man, these guys might actually get us, but they came in looking like, oh, they're not getting us, no chance. And so that is something you have to deal with. Is you're not dealing with a stumbling Milwaukee team. These guys got right over the last week, even after they dropped, I think, 6 of their last 8 to end the season. I mean, they are motivated to play the Pacers. They were not happy with how this series went beforehand. They believe in themselves. They're used to this, and they dictated tempo and they dictated pace. And so you have to find a way to flip them off of their game, and that will not be easy.
Absolutely not. Hey, we've got lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with us, and we're back with that right after this. Brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Just go to freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. All right. I know you don't get to follow up on basketball or college basketball as much, especially now.
A little. We could talk about something. What do we?
I know. Because I want the people to understand your job is to cover the Pacers, and you're on the road doing that. So,
I keep my toes in it. I mean,
I trust me. I know that you're as knowledgeable as people. Some people that cover it regularly, but I just want to. I keep seeing we've got more and more new names on here, so I want them to know that while you do an unbelievably great job, that your job is not to cover that anymore. And the fact that you're able to cover it as well as you do is amazing, and a testament to your
Thank you,
ability
sir.
to really do your job and so much more outside of that.
Right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. They did land, now that they've gotten Miles Rice, they've got Kanan Carlisle, a pair of guards, which is going to be rated pretty highly by those that do that sort of thing. But they still did not land a shooter out of that group. Neither of those guys are what you would call knockdown shooters.
Right.
They've got Zach Anderson, who visited yesterday from Florida Gulf Coast, who's a freaking career 40% three-point shooter. And he's only got 1 year left. So I'm like, I don't care where you play. If you play in Division I and you shot 40% for a career, that's damn good.
Right.
Hell, against IU last year, I forget what the numbers were, but he was like 5 of 7 or something. I saw Florida Gulf Coast beat FAU last year in a game. So,
right. Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, let's talk through that. Let me call up. I haven't looked at these guys, the guards too closely. So I have like something that
they're both younger. The good thing is they have years left. Rice, or was it Carlisle?
They both have a bunch of years left. I think one's a sophomore and one's a.
What I was going to say is, which one was the Pac-12 freshman of the year?
That was Miles Rice.
Okay. That's what I thought.
All right. Here we go, guys.
Exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. Little 5 weekend in Bloomington. I stayed away from it, not because it's not great, but if you've ever been to it, then you understand why. Dustin on Dopirak from the Indy Star with me. I'm sure he understands exactly why I stayed away from town.
I miss it though. I miss the little 5 weekend. I'm not gonna.
It's awesome, and it was a beautiful weekend. Not warm, really warm, but it was a beautiful weekend. So the peeps were out and about, man.
Yeah, I can imagine they were. So obviously, I didn't go to IU, but I was there long enough that it felt like I did. So Little 5 weekend was fun, even for post college adults, but not the same. Not you can't operate the same like once you're past age 22. But it was still a fun time to be around, and the race is fun itself too. That's the other thing. I mean, I think it's easy.
Well, it's actually incredible because it's so unique.
Yeah, really is. Zach, my boy Zach Osterman, obviously gets deep involved in that and is still coaching. I'm not sure if he coached this year or not. I feel like I haven't talked to him about it.
He did.
He's Zach.
I asked him about it. So yeah, he was. I forget.
He's been on the brink. He's been very close to winning a title as a coach, and so
Phi Kappa Psi is the team.
That's it. Yeah, I mean he
rode in the event.
He did indeed. You can see some old pictures of Zach on the bike. But yeah, I mean, like the coolest thing about it is just like, I mean, how many. There obviously are some riders, and some of the best riders are people that are already experienced by the time they get to IU. But a lot of them aren't. A lot of them, maybe they were a distance runner in high school or something like that. But their athletic background is, like a lot of ours. Played high school something or something else, and get to school not necessarily expecting, to be an athlete and turn themselves into pretty close to world-class riders. And the amount of dedication it takes, again, for people who aren't there on scholarship, who are just doing this to do it. And they don't party, they don't party for the whole semester. They get on these teams, they're riding, like bikes in their frat basements, and they turn themselves into like really serious athletes. And then you see it an incredibly competitive and athletically impressive, scene out there for the men's and women's races. I mean, I did come back, when I was at the Herald Times, this most recent time, I got to cover both of those and remind myself of just how cool an event it is. And so that was a blast for sure. And it's still a very, very impressive thing to watch.
And the Black Key Bulls were the winning team. That does not sound like it is a fraternity team.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not.
I don't know how. And so
I think it's independent. Yeah.
So and like the Cutters they're independent, but so how does that go about when you have these independent teams?
Now I'm out of my depth.
The fraternities are obviously, it's all based out of that fraternity, but I'm like, all right, so where the Cutters goes back to if you haven't seen the movie Breaking Away, which it's that bicycle movie, John.
Hey, for me and Dustin Schutte, it will forever be known as the bicycle movie, and he coined that phrase, Mr. Schutte.
Yeah, I mean,
it is a bicycle movie.
I brought that up one day, and the response I get was, "Is that bicycle movie?" And I was like, "Oh my god, you're out."
It's a really good. It's a very good bicycle movie. It is also about youth and about growing up, and it's very, very good.
The funniest guy and the best part of the whole movie for me is the father. I cannot remember his name, but he's like a character actor. But Heidi's and refund. If there's two words that come out of the movie for me, it's Heidi and refunds. And you have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about. But oh man, but some serious star power in that movie. Dennis Quaid. What's the doggone it?
I can't remember anybody after Dennis Quaid, to be totally honest with you. I mean, they're really good, but like
the guy that's like the quote unquote star of the movie, I have no idea who the hell he is. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else again. But you have Dennis Quaid, the guy that has three names, and then the dude that was in Home Alone, Daniel Stern.
That's right. Forgot Daniel.
But the younger guy, the smaller guy, daggone it, I can't think of his name offhand, and I'm obviously not looking it up. But it's just it's one of the great events in college, in all of college. There's not many things like this.
Sure is.
Where that many people come together to watch a standalone event that is not not a normal connected to college athletics.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like to see a bike race on a track, in a stadium, like all of this stuff is just not normal, but it is such a part of Bloomington culture. It's such an integral part of Bloomington and IU culture. And it's definitely one of those things where you're like, you don't think about it when you're going to live there, like if you're not from Indiana at all, like it's not something like I knew I had heard of it, and that was about it, I didn't know what it was when I came to Bloomington the first time. And it was just like, oh man, Little Five weekend is different. But then, and again, like the race itself just really does stand out for all the, parties that go on and the concerts they bring in, and like everything around it is its own thing. And that's a big deal, and obviously you spend the weekend being like, wow, like everybody's out all the time. Like this is a lot. But you get to Friday, Saturday and see the race itself and you're like, okay, like this is a separate thing. And it's funny how like on one hand you have every other student going to the bar on Monday and going there all week. And then, but like these people haven't been there since January at least, and they are like, while everybody else is getting really out of shape, these guys, men and women, are doing an incredible job of being in shape. And that's the centerpieces of these people, just what they've transformed themselves into over the course of, a semester, but also possibly their college careers.
Yeah, and you can certainly see all the, if you're out and about in and around Bloomington, outside of town, it just loads of riders
Cyclists,
up and down the road. It's kind of a pain sometimes, but you have to.
It's impressive. You have to salute. Like
you have to take it in for what it is.
Sure.
The uniqueness of it. So there's that, and it was awesome. Indiana obviously landing another guard in Kanan Carlisle as he committed over the weekend. The Stanford player, shooting guard, who his statistics are okay. They're not greatly impressive. They're not bad. And Indiana, that's on top of landing a point guard in Miles Rice, who was the Pac-12 Player of the Year, who's also, his shooting statistics are not great. They're okay. Both of these guys are good free throw shooters, which is always a good sign because Indiana has had horrible problems at the free throw line. And so if you've got a point guard that's a good free throw shooter, that's good because hopefully if he's not distributing, he's either getting to the rim, scoring, or getting fouled. Indiana still needs to add that knockdown shooter, though. They haven't done that. They did have Zach Anderson on a visit yesterday from Florida Gulf Coast, who shot 40% over his career, and that's over 4 years, people. It's not one season. This dude is, he's
built up, though.
5 of 7 against Indiana last year.
Yeah, his numbers have built up as he's gone on. He had a great year last year. I was looking at his actual totals. He's 51 of 111 that last year at 459. So that makes for a lot of his overall numbers. Previous year he was 37.3, 28 of 75, 26 of 64 as a sophomore. He was 6 of 37 as a freshman. So he came a long way as a shooter. That's something.
And the fact that he's growing like that is a hell of a sign.
Sure. Yeah. No, he's gotten better. And so, over 4 years, you're going to come in and he's going to be experienced shooter wherever he goes, if Indiana does land him. I think it goes back to some things I think we were talking about with Todd Leary, a couple of weeks ago, about, in terms of how they're building this thing. And it is good that they're, given the alternative at this point, that they're getting some players in the portal. They're getting a couple guys, dynamic looking guards, and maybe they can grow into better shooters. Obviously they're still young enough that how good of outside shooters they are is not at all set in stone. But at a whole, it still feels like the formula is a little weird because again, Mike Woodson came in expecting to play modern NBA style basketball. 4 out, 1 in at least. So much of the NBA is really 5 out. But or at least guys moving around. Certainly there are post-up games, but it tends to be, you don't tend to sit there with your back to the basket and wait for it. You get post-ups out of movement where you're moving around on a roll or whatever, and then you turn your back and post a guy and hit him quick. Obviously more guys operate sort of stationed in the post in college basketball, but you were at least looking for the scenario of, all right, you get a big and then you put shooters around him and you space the floor. And that's not how IU is functioning at any point, and that's not how they're going to function again now if they're going to have Omar Bello and Malik Renew. And I can't see a scenario at this point where they don't play those guys together. I don't see a scenario where those two guys aren't 2 of the best 5 players on the floor. So you're moving Mbako to the 3 again and getting the majority of, a significant amount at least, if not the majority of his minutes there. And then, you're putting 2 guards around him. And again, can you imagine, is that going to be enough gravity, to pull some bodies away from Ballo and Renew, to operate in the middle? I'd be surprised if it is. And it's still better that they're getting, that they've got a couple dynamic young guards to start with. They still have Mbako, they still have Renew, that they got Ballo. There's, they had to go get talent because they had to, again, refurbish the team after you lose as many people as they're going to lose. But it still makes you wonder, okay, just big picture direction, where are they at, or do they have it? And so it does feel like sort of papering over holes just to try to get from one year to the next year to the next year without having sort of a cohesive, overall philosophy that carries you from year to year to year and into sort of a long-term future. But, again, they've got to grab people in the portal, and it's good that they've gotten talented people so far. And, young people, especially, Carlisle and Rice, and maybe if you make them happy, you can keep them around for a couple years. That they don't necessarily be in that NBA, jump level. But, guys that could be productive as freshmen or redshirt freshmen in the Pac-12, that means they can be productive in the Big Ten. So you can expect that those two guys are going to be able to score at the Big Ten level. But just I think you still need to see some other signs that there's kind of a long-term plan into creating a style of play that's sustainable.
Without question, and they still have 3 spots to fill, even though they have brought 4 in. They still have 3 places to fill, and to be honest with you, they still have needs. They're going to have to land another big, without question. They've got Ballo, who was land, and he's going to, without question, be playing in that number 5 spot.
Right.
But
they need a backup big. I mean, and that's a weird thing to look for, is somebody who's going to be satisfied being a backup big, being a 5 who comes on and plays 10, 15 minutes tops, maybe not even that, but just somebody that can fill in so that you're not, that you don't have at least one of those guys on the floor at all times, that you can have some minutes where you're not playing one or both of them. And so, they do need at least one more body in there. But you have to get a guy that's okay with being in that body. And so you're probably looking at a 4th-year guy who wants to raise up his level, but, you need somebody that's going to be okay with that. And so that means, in terms of that means that's the case in a lot of levels of, that obviously affects probably whatever NIL deal you can get. They need somebody that's got to be okay with being an 8 to 10 minute guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to pull it back up, and I didn't. For instance, Ballo, how many minutes he played a game, which I'm sure he played 15.2 minutes per contest in his first season at Arizona. So that, and then I don't know if that went up. Again, I'm sure, but he's not going to play the whole game. So you have to wonder, and you just mentioned it, someone like Malone, who was an NAIA guy, but I was talking about this earlier. There are so many of these guys that are wanting guaranteed this, guaranteed that, and that makes me sick to my stomach. Anytime, and it's easy for me to say this because I'm not in the position of being a coach, but if a guy said, I want guaranteed this, I'm like, bye. I need to do whatever I can to do without you, because I don't need you dictating the fact that you're going to start without even thinking about earning it. Because if you don't want to earn it, then you're not willing to fight, period. You're not going to fight. That tells me you're not going to fight for the team. You're not going to fight to win. You're not going to fight. You want it handed to you, a la Bronny James. And
I'm not going to go there.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's much Bronny as it is LeBron.
I don't know. I don't know what he said and hasn't said.
Everything I've said has seen come from LeBron, not from Bronny.
Sure. Right. I think the issue, is like not an issue. You've obviously flipped the scenario into, with the portal and with NIL and everything like that, you're looking at what's like, and I'm trying to apply it to real life, but it makes it an unmanageable situation for coaches. But you're looking at it as, okay, you have leverage. And so, it is a tough thing to give young kids leverage, because, I think when you're an adult and, you're looking at your job scenario and you're looking at whatever it is that you're trying to do, you do look at leverage. You do look at, basically a scenario of like, what can I guarantee myself? Because I don't want to be in a scenario where, this isn't solidified, you want fewer scenarios where your salary isn't steady, where your life isn't based on commission. And if you don't get it, then you don't make rent that month, and so it's just like, you are giving these kids the opportunity where they have leverage and they're trying to use it to say like, okay, like I want to go someplace. If I have the option out there that there's a guarantee that I can guarantee myself something that, how are you not going to take it if it's out there, as opposed to going someplace where you're not guaranteed. So I get it. And it makes for it's a very awkward deal where, again, like if you're in the real world, you are trying to get yourself a situation where things are more guaranteed, where you can look at, say, I have a baseline for this and I don't have to fight for my life, that I know this is going to be paid for and that is going to be paid for. And these people have the opportunity to balance that and to fight for that. And it makes it weird. But it's also at a position where, you're 18, you're 19, you're 20, you haven't necessarily earned that yet. And you're a college coach, you're like, I can't have people that everybody expects to be guaranteed things because I can't guarantee everybody things. Like I can't have it all be that way. So you're very much in the place where nothing makes sense. Like we just have not found a balance that makes sense. But I get why people get there. I get why if you're a college kid, you're like, all right, well, why would I go? Does it make sense for me to go to a big mid-major, if I'm a third or fourth year college guy, when I can go someplace else and know I'm going to play and make more, NIL money, even if I'm not going to play in the NBA anyway, and it's just like, okay, like, why wouldn't I go someplace where I can set myself up as well as possible, make the most out of college basketball and get out of it and move on with my life and have a nest egg when I go sell insurance, like that, these are things that they've got to consider. And so it is a very weird place that college basketball is in. And so it's hard to set the same standards, but also, like, again, I get where kids are coming from. It's a weird deal right now. And, I don't know how long it's going to take for things to rebalance.
Hey, Chris asking.
We do have our own beat writer. Her name's Chloe Peterson.
I was going to say, I thought you did. I thought you already did.
Yes, so we do. Obviously, I'm not going to touch on Greg because
I did not even bring it up.
Sure, no. So I just to say that point. I mean, obviously, I know it was brought up on Twitter this week that that Chloe's the Fever title wasn't in her job. She's got a job that's multifaceted. She also she was covering IU women. I hope you guys were following her on that beat. She's terrific. Chloe Peterson's excellent. Obviously, when a story gets as big as Caitlin Clark is, you have to cover it with multiple people through multiple angles. Obviously, you would on a general basis use your columnist, when it comes to a story that's that big. But Chloe Peterson is the person. She's going to be on the road. She has to be on the road. I don't know exactly what all the decisions are going to be made in terms of where she goes and where she doesn't. But Chloe's, she's a terrific reporter to start with. She's an Iowa graduate, so she's been on the Caitlin Clark beat before. And so she's been following her for years. So yes, like Chloe Peterson is going to be your person to follow. I did, Fever camp last year before she came in. So I got to work with her at the beginning when she was kind of taking over the beat, and she's excellent. And again, it's going to be an excellent beat, not just because of Caitlin Clark, but, Aaliyah Boston is a terrific player and a terrific personality. And so, I think she kind of flew under the radar last year. Those two together are going to be a great combination of basketball players, but also a great combination of humans to be able to follow. So yeah, Chloe Peterson is your person to follow. That's that. Again, it doesn't necessarily say that on the beat on our web page that she's the Fever person, but she's the Fever person. She's also the IU women's person. She's going to do high school stuff. She's young. She's getting a bunch of work. But she's wearing a whole bunch of hats. But she's a spectacular beat reporter. So for Fever stuff, follow Chloe Peterson.
Moocher. That was Jackie Earl Haley was the name I was trying to think of earlier. He's the short guy, but he was also the ringer in the Bad News Bears.
There you go. That makes sense.
Some great movies, man. It's great movies. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. He's got more coming from Milwaukee as the Pacers try to even things up in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and hopefully they can get that done. Buddy, thank you so much, and go out and enjoy
Milwaukee
to the to Harley Davidson factory. I don't know.
Probably won't do that, but might hit up the Deer District tonight. We'll see after we get done with we got practices, both teams, a lot going on. So
absolutely. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Coming up next, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload joins us. More college basketball chat and plenty of whatever else you want to talk about. Back with more after this, brought to you by Boost Fundraising. For those of you looking for a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising offers the most unique and easy online fundraiser in the nation. Raising more money faster, your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Boost Fundraising raises money easier and faster. Go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo code COIL to receive a discounted fundraiser for whomever you're working for. We're back with more, including Travis Miller from Boiler Upload right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Good morning, Travis. Not much. I was up in Chicago this weekend, so it was cold.
Oh, yeah? What'd you do in Chicago? Cubs?
Yep. My wife is from Miami, and they were playing the Marlins, so we went. It was her birthday on Saturday, and she was excited to go see the Marlins play. That's
Nice.
That's a phrase you don't hear very often.
I won a Little League title in machine pitch, and my team was the Marlins. I don't remember how old I was, but whatever age machine pitch is.
Yeah. Yeah, she grew up in Miami, and she was at the first game in Marlins history as a big baseball fan. So if they're in Cincinnati, if they're in Chicago, wherever, we try to go, especially if it's a weekend series.
Believe it or not, I've never been to, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe I've ever been to a Major League Baseball game. I've been to AAA baseball because I have a AAA team where I live, but I don't usually seek out baseball live for whatever reason.
I grew up a Cubs fan and everything, and then since she loved baseball, we started picking off ballparks like 12, 13 years ago, and now we only have 2 to go to see a game in all 30 active parks, and we already
I think that's the coolest thing that baseball fans do is visit all the different parks.
Yeah, and then our son has been to 24 of the 30, and we're going in May. We're going to the East Coast. We're getting Yankee Stadium in Fenway. We've not been to the new Yankee Stadium, but we've been to Fenway before. Our son has not been to either one of them, so he'll be at 26 after the summer.
What's the other one you haven't hit other than the new Yankee Stadium?
Minnesota, Target Field.
Okay.
And ironically, I've been to the old Yankee Stadium, and I saw the Twins in the Metrodome.
Okay. So you've been to at least every Major League Baseball city.
Yes.
But you haven't been in every current ballpark.
Right. We got in 2005 went up to see Purdue play Minnesota in the Metrodome in football, and the Vikings happened to be home the next day, and the Royals happened to be home the day after that. So we saw all 3 teams in the Metrodome in 3 days.
Did you ever go to Montreal when the Expos were there?
No, never made it to Montreal. That would have been an interesting one just from, okay, how bad is it? I've been to Oakland. I've been to Oakland before they built Mount Davis, and I've been after. And the thing I can say about it is they do the best that they can with what they have.
Okay.
It's not great. Honestly, I think Anaheim is a little bit worse. I didn't think it was awful at Oakland, but that was a couple of years ago is the last time I was there.
All right, here we go, guys. 10 seconds.
0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload with us now, and just more going on with college basketball as this wacky season continues. That is the portal. I'll be honest with you. The craziest thing so far that has happened to me is what the hell's happening at Duke? Seriously, they had 0 guys transfer out last year. This year, 7 hit the portal. And that doesn't include probably I have to go back and look to see if they lost anyone to the NBA. I would think that there's Oh yeah, Kyle Filipowski declared for the NBA, I believe. So, but they've had 7 guys hit the portal. That is, you're going from 0 to 100.
I think college basketball is in a very interesting juxtaposition right now, especially with the major conference programs, because you look at Purdue and they're pretty much ignoring the portal this year. Yeah, they lost Ethan Morton and Mason Gillis, but that was
well, they didn't have any room, did they?
No, they didn't have any room, and Purdue seems to be doing we're going to grow internally. We're going to get guys that are going to be here 3 or 4 years and guys that are going to stay and build something. And I think in the long run, to me, that's the better strategy, because you build a team that is familiar with playing with each other and getting everybody together versus, okay, we're rolling out a glorified pickup team for 30 games. Let's hope it works. I mean, yeah, Duke can get some promising guys and high-rated players. Indiana can get promising guys, high-rated players. Doesn't matter at all if they can't play together or if the coach can't manage that talent. I mean, look at what USC did this last year. How many 4- and 5-star guys did they have? They had a losing record. So I don't care about the stars. I don't care about the ratings. Can they play together and can they win? And you have Danny Hurley at UConn proven, yes, you can blend that talent together and get it all to work together if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to see any improvement. So it'll be interesting to see. You're not going to know how things come together until guys are on the court and everything. But at least from a Purdue perspective, I'm satisfied with what we're doing. Yeah, we don't have any 5-star guys, but we have guys that have proven they can play well together. And Matt Painter is the quintessential coach that can build teams that is better than the sum of its parts. So really, where would you rather be right now? Would you rather have a roster where you know what you're going to get, they've proven what they can do together, or would you rather have a roster that's like, yeah, these guys on paper have a lot of talent, but can they win together?
Well, my argument to that would be UConn. UConn loses 3 players to the NBA, 75% of their offense, and come back with a basically different team in order to win back-to-back national titles. And from a fan standpoint, the Purdue way is that is great. The fans love that because that's what Indiana fans would like to see. They would love to see a team that is at least a hodgepodge of some guys from Indiana mixed in with other guys, and where you have them for 3 years at a minimum. But that is just no longer a reality, in my opinion, as if you want to win a national championship. Because as I've said, the last 6 teams now have had a minimum of 4 NBA draft picks on their rosters. So that's irrefutable. It's just a fact. And not to say that there is not something to be said for that cohesiveness. There is, of course. But at the end of the day, it comes down to talent. You can be together all you want, but if you're not good enough, then that's not going to matter. Indiana did not look cohesive last year. That's not exactly a word that comes up to my mind. Do they this year? We'll have to wait and see. But part of not looking cohesive is having to do with not having the best pieces in place. And it's going to be a completely different look for Indiana next year with a new point guard, a new shooting guard. You've got other guys coming in, Ballo, who's going to be at the center spot. They still have 3 spots to fill. And that's what's going to get difficult for Indiana, filling those spots, because from a guard's perspective, they already have Carlisle and Rice, who just signed on. Before that, you got Leo, Galloway, Cups. But they could probably still use one more, to be honest with you. But they've got the one true big, and that's Mr. Ballo. So somebody's going to have to be there to back him up, because knowing Mike Whitson, he's going to run Malik Renew at the 4 and keep that size on the court. You've got Mackenzie Mbako at a wing at a 3, but you've got Bryson Tucker, who I guess is listed as a wing. But you don't have room to run both of those guys at the same time if you're running those two bigs. Now you can alter that up and change that and consider Renew at the big, or I mean not the big, but at the number 4 slot, which he would be. And when you sub in now, if you've got someone that's size wise that's guarding Renew, that's going to be difficult if you replace him with Tucker, who was a completely different athlete, or if they can land one of these other guys that they're chasing. You got, is it Humrichus from Evansville? Humrichus? I don't know exactly how to say his name.
Hummerkaus, maybe.
Hummerkaus. All right, that sounds better. Never seen that name before, so there's that. But yeah, it's not fun for the fans. Indiana fans are so old, and not old, but I mean, it's just so deep. It's, the fan base is so deep. They're still wanting, a lot of them still would love to see Bob Knight walk through the door, and that just ain't going to happen. They want to see the 90s, early 90s type teams. And I'm not saying that can't happen, because that was not a slow down offense. No. Bob Knight didn't walk the ball up the floor. Those guys, I mean, when next time I have Todd Leary on, we'll talk about it again, but they ran, hell, they scored a lot of points, man. They didn't live on, well, if we score 72 points and yada, yada, that's not how they just went. And so it's going to be interesting for Purdue. They're sticking to what has worked for Matt Painter, bringing in 6 new freshmen, which, boy, that's a lot of freshmen when you are losing what Purdue lost. They lost, of course, Zach Edey is the biggest piece, but you also have to add Mason Gillis, who was Purdue's 4th biggest free throw or 3-point shooter in that. Not that can't be replaced, but I'm still a little surprised that those guys went away, and that was the plan, because it just, that would kind of guarantee you a little more synchronicity than having 6 new guys come in that are not only new, but these guys are all freshmen.
It's going to be interesting. And I think the key to that is, yeah, they're going to be freshmen, but they're not going to be freshmen that Purdue is going to rely on. It's still going to be that core 3 of starters of Trey Kaufman-Wren, Fletcher Lawyer, and Braden Smith. And that's 3 very solid guys. You return 3 starters for any team in college basketball, you're going to be in a good position. And then I think it's just going to be interesting to see how they complement with the freshmen coming in, how much Camden Heide and Miles Colvin make a leap in their second season playing, because they're going to play a pretty big role. What is Will Berg going to do? Is he going to take over at least some of those minutes as a Zach Edey type, because he has a very similar build, only he can step out and shoot the 3 on occasion. So I think you'll see Purdue play a very different style of basketball, but Matt Painter has proven he can do that. Look at his 2019 team that won the Big Ten and came within a second of going to the Final Four. That was not a post-heavy offense. That was very much Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein. They can shoot the 3. They can work the ball around, get guys involved. And, it was guard play that took them that far. And I think that you can see that with Lawyer, with Smith, with Catchings. I'm very, very high on Catchings. I know in the final Rivals rankings, he was rated the number 30 recruit in the country. You talk about a guy that can be an NBA prospect, boom, that's him right there. You give him a year or 2 where he thrives at Purdue, yeah, he could be a first-round pick. And, are there some other guys that could be fringe picks around him? Someone might take a flyer on a Braden Smith. Trey Kaufman-Wren has some promise. It'll be interesting to see how he develops in a larger role this year. But Purdue's it's going to be a different look. It has to be a different look because you can't replace a Zach Edey with another Zach Edey. You don't get better by losing a 2-time National Player of the Year. But I think that Coach Painter has a track record of playing to his team's strengths and focusing on those strengths. And in the long run, I'm going to trust that because he's proven it over the last 7 years. You don't win 4 Big Ten titles and come within a play of 2 more without being able to adapt to turnover every season. And so, I think they're in a great spot, and I think they're another top 4 finish in the Big Ten. That's just what he has done over the last few years. They're, are they going to be as good as last year? No, absolutely not. That's impossible. Can they be a threat to win the Big Ten and get another deep run in the tournament? Absolutely. Because as we've seen the past few years, anything can happen in the tournament. You can be UConn and just smoke your way through the tournament. You can be North Carolina State and just get hot at the right time and make it to the last weekend. And ultimately, the goal is to get there and have a chance. And this is a Purdue team that they'll make the NCAA tournament, so they will have a chance to make another run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know where they end up in the Big Ten, Purdue, as far as Purdue goes, because I don't know who's going to be what. I don't know what Indiana's going to look like yet until it's all done. And we're starting to get a much better idea. I don't know what Illinois is going to look like because Brad Underwood always does a great job replacing what he loses. And they have just been in the mix these last couple of years. And Wisconsin, I think that they may be falling off. Ohio State is kind of a dark horse for me. They made that great run at the end of the season. They've added Bradshaw from Kentucky, and I'm sure they're not done. Iowa, that was the women picked up the all-time leading scorer. But so I'm trying to think Rutgers. Rutgers has got a hell of a recruiting class coming in, and I just saw that. The brother, daggone it,
Harper.
Yeah, Ron Harper, or not Ron, but Dylan Harper. I think he lit up the Jordan Brand game for like 30 points or something. So he's legit, and they've got a massive class coming in of guys. And man, he's done a hell of a job coaching at Rutgers. They play some tough-ass defense, and they've been offensively challenged here the last couple of years. But man, if they add that and can maintain that level of defense, they're going to be one to look out for.
Yeah, and it's such a hard way it's so hard to get a measure of the Big Ten right now because aside from, Purdue's been at the top the last 2 years, and then you've had some teams just have been really, really bad, like Michigan was at the bottom. Everybody's been bunched in the middle. I'm looking at the standings right now. You had 7 teams that were within a game of 500. Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan State, Iowa, Ohio State, Minnesota, Penn State, all of them were within a game of 500 in conference play. So that tells you that everybody there in the middle is just dead even. And Northwestern and Nebraska finished third. They were 12-8. So it's not like they were running away into the top 4 from the middle group or anything. So I think when you look at the just consistency the last few years and the overall standings, I think you got to consider Purdue up there. You got to consider Illinois. You got a team like Michigan State. As weird as it is to say about Tom Izzo, he's got to prove it to me now. I mean, this is a program that, he's got the reputation. He's been there forever, but they were a top 5 team that finished 500 in the Big Ten, was 20-15 overall, and they made the tournament, but they didn't even come close to meeting their expectations. You mentioned Iowa. You know what you're going to get with Iowa every year. They're the opposite of Kirk Ferentz. They're all offense, no defense. So Iowa basketball is the exact opposite of Iowa football, and you know what you're going to get with them. So,
And I don't know, when are they ever going to, I'd say never, because Iowa seems to be content being Iowa. And year in, year out, they're Iowa. It's Iowa football used to kind of bump the top and back and forth. They're not right now. They're being Iowa. They're winning the games they're supposed to win 6-3, and losing the games they're supposed to lose 20-6. But Iowa basketball, it's like, dude, this offense only and no defense does not work. You're not, the only time that even would come close to working if you were like Alabama and you are a prolific 3-point shooting team. That got them to the Final Four, but it could not get them past an elite UConn team.
yeah. And Iowa, even when Iowa had Luka Garza and was a top 5 team, I wasn't afraid of them because, again, they didn't play any defense. They wanted to get you 95 and 93.
Not to interrupt you, great point. Luka Garza, what's he? Daggone it, the two brothers.
Man, it's not the McCaffreys. It's not
no. Oh hell no. Keegan Murray.
Yeah, the Murrays. Yes.
Okay, Keegan Murray is doing it in the NBA right now. So you've had the players of the year, and yet you haven't done jack squat.
Yeah, they didn't win the Big Ten. I don't even think they made the second weekend in the NCAA tournament with those guys. You got to play some, like you said, you got to play some defense at some point. I mean, look what the Pacers did yesterday. I mean, they neglected to even try and play defense on Dame Lillard, and they lost. And that's just what it is. So,
well, as far as predicting a Big Ten champion next year, that ain't going to happen. Right now. I mean, and even when the season comes around, it's going to be enjoyable to say, all right, we'll see who's where. But I just don't know that's going to get more and more difficult each and every year because these teams are changing so much.
And I think that's why Purdue is at the top of the list right now, because Purdue's one of the few teams that what their roster is going to be. You don't know.
That's where I disagree. Just because you know what the roster is going to be, it has to still have some elite talent, and I don't see elite talent on that roster.
Yeah, wait till you see Cannon Catchings.
Well, good player, no doubt. Now I don't know how quickly he can transfer that to the next level. Very good player, without question. Speaking of which, Trent Sisley, Matt Painter is doing an in-home with Sisley today, by the way.
There's been some smoke going behind the scenes there. It sounds like, Braden Smith yesterday just did the one tweet of the 2 raised eyebrows and everything. So that kind of threw everybody into a frenzy. We're hearing smoke. Everybody's seeing smoke and everything. We obviously will not comment or say that there's a commitment or anything until there's anything official, but it seems like Purdue may be in a pretty good spot today for that, and I think that would be a coup.
Are you saying expecting a commitment?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm not expecting.
I would find that hard to believe,
but from what we're seeing and kind of what we're hearing is, there could be some movement. Not a guarantee, obviously, but there could be.
Well, we'll see. I would find that hard to believe, but I will say this: Matt Painter has done the best job recruiting Trent Sisley of anybody. I can guarantee you that. But we'll see how it all plays out. Make sure you're keeping up if the Boilers at Boiler Upload. Travis has it all there for you all the time, and appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate coming on.
You betcha. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
in the market. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're fine. I let it go long.
I thought that I was like, damn, he didn't pop in. So
No, you're fine. I'm going to step out for a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, Purdue is not going to. Sorry. Humrich House. The Humrich House. Holy moly.
All right, I'm back. You'll have about 9-ish minutes, 8-9 minutes for this last segment.
Oh,
And when
I
we
forgot.
wrap up.
Good thing I forgot. Damn, I was all stressing.
No, you're good. When we wrap up, I'm going to hop off pretty much immediately because Tyler and I are just going to go over some questions he has for me. If you need anything quick afterward, that's fine. But I plan on hopping off earlier than normal just to get rolling with him, and so I can also do post production in a timely manner. Excuse me.
Timely manner.
I know. I feel like I got a frog in my throat.
Timely manner.
All right, 30 seconds.
Was located on South Walnut in Bloomington and is your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started off right, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida. If you're already in the area or will be, the Ugly Grouper has so much more than just unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat Radio sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com today. It's another day in Portalwood, Portalville, Portalwood, whatever you want to call it. Indiana still with 3 spots to fill. Duke is losing everything. It's going to be what the hell with Duke. It is. Don't know what that is, but
do you think there's a chance that they have NIL issues with Duke?
See, that would amaze me because all the doctors and all of that. Duke has the most Twitter followers, but that doesn't mean everything.
Yeah.
And right there in front of Indiana, but I don't know what's going on, but something is going on. When you have 7 guys leave, now when you have the guys at the talent level that they have, these are always guys that are highly, highly recruited or, highly rated. And maybe they're not getting, or they're being offered more. It's just it's a seller's market now, man. And everybody is getting on board. Arkansas, teams that weren't before, all you have to find is, and every university has them, or 2 or 3 big daddy donors. And those guys usually like to see wins. They want to see you win. So it's become a very different atmosphere. And now it is caught up to Duke. Why? I don't know. That is not happening.
It'll be interesting because they have Cooper Flagg coming in, who's one of the most highly touted freshmen in a while for college basketball, at least without seeing anything on the court of them collegiately just yet. So, I mean, they must have had something for him, or else Cooper Flagg wouldn't have committed to Duke. And maybe it's not all about NIL for somebody like Flagg. We'll never know. But that is an interesting thing to keep in mind when you see the rest of their roster hightailing it out of Durham.
Yeah, it's surprising to see that many, mainly because Duke has been resistant to that. But it hasn't been going on forever. So it's reached Duke. It's kind of reached Kentucky now that Calipari's gone. We've seen what are they going to look like next year? I'm not sure.
Yeah, right now Kentucky only has 3 commits. They got Amari Williams recently out of Drexel. They brought in a transfer from BYU, somebody who was previously on Mark Pope's team out in Utah. Colin Chandler, I believe is his name, and then they have one other guy whose name I'm blanking on, but they don't have the talent that they once had. It's going to be completely retooled Kentucky team next year.
Oh, well, that's going to be for a lot of teams, including Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
But Indiana needed retooling without
the
question.
Difference between Kentucky, though, and Indiana is they have 0 guys returning from last year's roster. Indiana is going to at least return, I believe, 5 or 6, including a couple of starters. Kentucky, among a few other schools, including Louisville, actually, because they both have brand new head coaches, both of those teams have 0 returning players from their original rosters. So both Pat Kelsey and Mark Pope will be essentially creating their very own team in their first year as head coaches at those schools.
The only starter returning for Indiana, though, really of substance is going to be Malik Renew and Mackenzie Mbako.
Yeah, and I mentioned that they had 2 starters, at least of substance, because Trey Galloway will likely come off the bench next year. You lost Khalil Ware to the NBA. And then you're, I don't know who else I'm forgetting, but it seemed like that 5th starter was a revolving door of people like Anthony Leal, Xavier Johnson when he wasn't injured. So it'll be a new look starting 5. At least 60% of your starting 5 will look different if you're the Hoosiers.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what Indiana can do. They've got to fill 3 more spots, and that is going to get increasingly difficult because of today's player wanting to know before they go, am I going to be a starter? Am I going to get 20 minutes a game, 25 minutes a game? How much time am I going to get, coach? Are you going to start me? Which I don't get. I would be more, I'll be honest with you. I would be more and mainly concerned with the money. I'll take care of the other part by working. That's what you're being paid to do. Anybody that asks that question should be banished from the game. I'm telling you, if you're getting paid to do this job, it's up to you how hard you work and what you succeed. That's why. How am I going to guarantee you anything until I see who does what? I'm not going to guarantee you start if somebody outworks you all through summer. If somebody outscores you all through summer, if someone schools you, why the hell am I going to guarantee you anything? Okay, I'll guarantee you start, call timeout, take you out. But I mean, it's interesting to see how it's going to work. We'll certainly find out. Indiana's not done, but names like Conwell are gone, I think, to Xavier, Esigian, to Nebraska. They wanted to know that they're going to play more, I promise you, and there's no way you can know that with what Indiana's brought in. And again, the lack of desire to fight, to play, to be the guy. Thank gosh it wasn't the case back in the day. But hey, tomorrow we get to do this all again, and we'll get up to date on everything that's gone on, the visits, who's coming, who's going. Mike DeCourcy joins us tomorrow. Chronic Cougar. We may get Todd Leary on tomorrow instead.
Greg Rakestraw also with us tomorrow because he couldn't come on today.
Okay, and we'll work out when to get Todd on, so
Yes.
we work it out. So Greg will be on tomorrow as well. So big day tomorrow as well. Looking forward to that. I can't thank you guys enough. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Thank everybody so much for being on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, all the comments, the questions. It's man, it usually slows down this time of year. It's sped up. And we've got major events coming as well as when this finishes this weekend. Indiana Elite is playing, and that is with Trent Sisley, who has Matt Painter conducting an in-home visit today from Purdue. Malachi Moreno, Brayton Mullins will be playing this weekend. We'll be there to cover all that, but we'll talk about that later this week. Big thanks to Dustin Dopirak, Travis Miller for joining us, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.